All right, so welcome everyone to the Fall 2024 OPT workshop. My name is Vivian. I am one of the ISSO advisors, and I am the advisor that primarily works with the OPT students. Moving forward, I will be your main point of contact while you're applying for OPT and when you are on OPT. Alrighty. So as I said, please wait until the end to ask questions. There will be a question and answer period at the end. Alrighty. All right. So happy OPT season and let's get started. Oops. Alrighty. So workshop overview. So what will we be talking about? So we'll go over what OPT is. I'm sure you all have a general idea, or maybe not, but we'll go through the specifics. We'll go through what you need to know before you apply. We'll go over the actual OPT application. And then we'll go over what to do when you're awaiting OPT approval, while you're on OPT, and the miscellaneous reminders that you just need to know. The first three bullet points are the very most essential and important points that you need to listen to right now as you start the OPT process, okay? The latter three are important as well, but right now we're really just focusing on what OPT is, how do we get there, how do we apply, all that good stuff, okay? As I said, please wait until the end to ask questions. I don't want to have to kick anyone out of the Zoom, but I will if it is causing a disruption. Alrighty, so what is OPT? So OPT stands for Optional Practical Training. It is a benefit of your F1 visa, which means that it allows you to have 12 months of off-campus work authorization based upon the completion of your degree program. Okay. So that is a common misconception. Students think that this is like a brand new visa, but it's actually not. It's a continuation of your F1 status. And you still have to abide by all F1 regulations when you're on OPT. The work must be in your field of study. If you are like a health and wellness program major and you are then trading stocks on Wall Street on your OPT, that is not going to fly. That is going to be a major problem because I'm not sure how that relates to your health and wellness degree. So just keep that in mind. It does have to relate to your program of study. And actually, for OPT, a job offer is not necessary to apply. So, for my friends that maybe have applied for CPT in the past, where you need a job offer to apply, for OPT, you do not need a job offer to apply, which is great because it allows you a lot of time to look for a job. Alrighty. So pre-application process. Are you eligible for OPT? So you are eligible for OPT if you've completed at least one academic year in a student status or in any type of valid status. You currently have to be in F1 status since this is a benefit of the F1 visa. And for OPT, you cannot begin applying for OPT until you are in your last semester. Or for my master's thesis or PhD dissertation students, you are eligible to apply for OPT once you've completed your coursework. And I'll get into the details of that in a second. Okay, so those are the three eligibility criteria that you must meet to apply for OPT. When to apply? Alrighty, so I know this is like one of the big questions. When can I start applying for OPT? What is a start date? So for graduation purposes, December 13th is when we are going to shorten your I-20 to show. So that is your graduation date for OPT purposes. So that means the earliest that you can apply for OPT is 90 days before December 13th, which in this case is actually September 14th. This upcoming Saturday is the first day that you can apply for OPT. Okay. The ISSO's OPT I-20 request application will be open starting tomorrow at 8 a.m. So that is when you can start requesting your OPT I-20. Okay. So as I said, the earliest date that you can apply is September 14th. And actually, you can apply up to 60 days after your program end date. So that would mean February 9th is the last date that you can apply for OPT. It is not recommended that you wait until the very last day to apply for OPT. Because you will lose out on time within your 12 months of work authorization. So you may know this, you may not, but USCIS processing usually takes about 90 days. And actually, last semester, spring 2024, we were seeing an average about 4 months for students to get approved and get their EAD card. So keep that in mind when you're deciding on when to apply. OPT start date. So you have 60 days after program completion to pick when you'd like to start working on OPT. Okay, so the earliest start date that you can choose is December 14th, which is the day after graduation. The latest OPT start date that you can choose is February 10th. Okay. So both those dates are the start and the end of your 60 days after program completion. So as you can see here, we have a riskier start date for December 14th, and then we have a safer start date for February 10th. And what we mean by riskier start date is not if you're going to get approved or not. It's more so, will you be approved by then if you choose a December start date? Let me just move this here. I don't know why this is. Um, so safer start date would be like late January, early February. And like I said, that doesn't mean you're not going to be approved. It just means you may not be approved by the time you apply. Please make sure that you are muted. Thank you. So as I said, the earliest OPT start date is December 14th, 2024. And the latest OPT start date is February 10th, and this should be 2025. Sorry about that little error. Okay. So what goes into choosing an OPT start date? So please consider the following, okay? Take into account USCIS processing time. It is an average of 90 days, so 3 months. So please take that into account. And like I said, last semester, USCIS was taking about 4 months for students to get approved. So just make note of that. Think about how long the interview process is going to take, the job search. Maybe your employer has, a few weeks of onboarding or like a background check that you need to pass before you can start working. So keep that in mind, as well as taking time off, taking time to rest between graduation and working. There is nothing wrong with that. a lot of students choose to go home after graduation or maybe travel a bit since this will be like the only free time they have before they start working. Just a follow-up to that, the ISSO cannot make this decision for you. So a lot of times I have students coming to my office saying, which start date is best? Which start date should I choose? Um, and really, it's up to you to make that decision for yourself. Every student is different. Every student has different circumstances. So just keep that in mind when you are making a start date decision. Um, it's perfectly okay if you and your friends have different start dates. Don't think that you all have to choose the same one, because every student has different circumstances. Okay. So just remember your requested start date has to be within 60 days of your program end date. And you cannot work earlier than your start date, but you can start working later. So if your start date is like February 1st, for example, but you're not starting your job until like February 10th, that is no problem at all. And just a big reminder, it is impossible to change your requested OPT start date after you've submitted your application to USCIS. The ISSO will also not change your start date once your I-20 has been issued for OPT, okay? That is our rule. We will not alter your start date once your I-20 has been issued for OPT. So that's why it's very important to take the time to consider your OPT start date very carefully, okay? So please keep that in mind. All right, so two different cases for you all. So, Safe Sam, for example, chooses the following start dates. Um, she chose February 8th, which is one of the later dates that you can choose because she, doesn't have a job offer right now. She's worried it may take a while to find one. She also wants to take some rest before she starts working, which is totally understandable. And she knows that USCIS is taking their sweet time in approving OPT applications. So she chooses one of the later dates. What happens if USCIS actually issues her EAD card a few weeks before her start date? So her start date will still be February 8th, but Sam cannot start working until both her EAD card is in her hand and her start date has arrived. So luckily for Sam, she may have gotten a job quicker than she expected, and her employer may want her to start before her start date, but she absolutely cannot do that. She has to wait until her start date has arrived and she has her EAD card in her hand. Okay. On the other end of the extreme spectrum, we have Tricky Ricky. He chooses, a very early start date, in December. Okay. So if everything goes according to plan for him, um, he's perfectly good. He's good to go to start working, right after graduation. But what happens to Ricky if USCIS actually issues his EAD card a few weeks after his start date? So, USCIS might edit his start date on his EAD, they might not. It's really up to their discretion. But sad for Ricky because he can't work until his EAD card is in his hand and his start date has passed. So, even though his start date on his OPTI 20 and the start date that he gave to USCIS has passed, he cannot start working because he actually has not been approved for OPT yet, and he doesn't have that EAD card in his hand. So what might happen? Ricky's employer might be put off by the delay and even rescind the offer. But I will say, in my many years of advising students on OPT, um, 9 times out of 10 employers are very flexible and understanding of the USCIS process. They understand it's out of your hands, and they are willing to work with students on their onboarding start date. Okay. So I don't know if anyone's ever seen Emperor's New Groove, but if you haven't, it's a great old classic Disney movie. But here we have Kronk. We have the devil on his shoulder that's telling him, don't you want to start working right away? Like, don't you want to start making money immediately? Like, make your start date the day after graduation. And then you have the angel on his shoulder that says you should play it safe and maybe choose a start date with a little more cushion. Maybe choose a start date in February. Don't you want time to rest and just chill after working so hard as a student, before you start working so hard as an employee? So just keep that in mind. But as I said, every student has different circumstances. So just take that into account. Okay. Alrighty, so listen up, my master's thesis and PhD dissertation students. This only applies to you. So you actually have major flexibility in when you want your OPT start date to be. So you actually don't have to follow the timelines that were given a few slides before. You can if you want to, but you don't really need to. So you're eligible for full-time OPT based on the completion of your coursework. All that we ask is that your defense date should be scheduled within the first 6 months of your OPT start date. And just be aware that all on-campus employment, stipends, gas, university health insurance ends by your OPT start date, because you're no longer considered a student. Okay. So it's really up to both the ISSO and your program advisor if we think that upon completion of your coursework, that OPT is the best move for you. Okay. So definitely come to advising and chat with us if you are in this boat, because there are some challenges when it comes to time management. So just remember, it is a full-time job writing, working on a dissertation or thesis. And just imagine working full-time on top of that. So that could lead to a lot of stress, a lot of complications. We as the ISSO cannot extend your I-20 for more time to complete your thesis or dissertation. Like I said, we expect you to wrap up everything within 6 months of your OPT start date. Alrighty. We ask you to do this because you cannot apply for your STEM extension if you're eligible for that without a copy of your diploma. So if you haven't defended your thesis or dissertation, there is no diploma being conferred to you, which means you cannot apply for a STEM extension. Okay. So very important things to keep in mind. But as I said, if you're a master's thesis or PhD dissertation student, come chat with us during advising hours so we can take a look at what you've got going on. Okay. Okay, so how can we start applying for OPT? So the first thing that you need to do is you need to go to the ISSO's OPT website. Under employment and internships, you will see OPT, optional practical training. Okay. And we actually have a tab, how to apply. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to request an OPT I-20 from the ISSO. As I said, that application will be open starting tomorrow, because we just don't want students applying too early, because if you apply before Saturday, you will get denied. So that's why we're opening the application starting tomorrow. You will have to know your start date when you apply for your OPT I-20 from us, okay? So you have to know your start date, and your academic advisor has to sign off on you applying for OPT. So what we mean by a recommendation is basically you're going to put in your advisor's information, their email address, and they're going to get an email from our office stating, is Vivian graduating this summer? Sorry, not summer. Is she graduating this semester? Is she eligible for OPT? So basically, they just have to check off a few boxes. And then once they sign off on that, then it'll come back to the ISSO and we'll be able to process your OPT I-20. So no recommendation letter is needed for from your academic advisor. That is a common misconception. You just have to put in their credentials. Most academic advisors have an idea of what OPT is, but some may not. So it might be good if you send an email before you apply and just say, hey, I'm applying for OPT and I will be sending you a recommendation. Just wanted to keep you in the loop. Okay. So once you apply for your OPT I-20, please give us 5 business days to process your I-20. It is just me processing all these OPT I-20s, so please be nice to me, and be patient, because especially during peak times of OPT season, I'm processing about like 20 I-20s per day. So I promise you, your OPT I-20 will be uploaded to you within those 5 business days, okay? Once your I-20 is uploaded, you can actually sign up for what's called an OPT review. OPT reviews are held twice a week over Zoom. And basically what they are is you'll have me talking at you once again, but we go through every single question of the online I-765, which is the OPT application you'll send to USCIS, okay? And then that is your last chance to ask whatever questions you have before you submit your application. I can't stress enough how important the OPT review sessions are to students, okay? We have such a high approval rate on our campus for OPT, and that is because of the OPT review sessions. Every semester we have maybe 1 or 2 students that get denied, and that is because they did not attend an OPT review session because they thought they were too smart to attend one. Okay, so there is a lot of crucial information that we go over in the OPT review session. So you'll be able to sign up for that after you submit your OPT I-20 request. Okay. So as I said, we'll go through every single question of the online I-765, but we also have an online filing guide for you as well that also goes through every single question while you're filling out the I-765, okay? There is a fee to apply for OPT. It is $470. It went up last semester from $410, so just keep that in mind. It is $470 now, okay? So then once you attend an OPT review session, you should feel confident and comfortable in sending out your OPT application to USCIS, okay? So basically, that is the cycle of applying actually for OPT. So you've submitted your OPT application. What do you do now? So this is what your EAD card is going to look like. It kind of just looks like a driver's license right here. So as we said, you cannot start working until your EAD card is in your hand and your start date has arrived. Once you get your EAD card, please, check it for any typos. Um, it's much easier to fix these things in the beginning than like later on. So just check your EAD card to make sure everything looks good. Your EAD card is going to be sent via federal mail through the US Post Office. So there's no way that you can forward this. So just keep that in mind. The address that you give for your EAD card is where your EAD card is being sent. Okay. Just for you to keep in mind, the look of the EAD card is changing. So it used to look like this, and now they're issuing EADs that look like this, okay? Both of these are valid, okay? I'm not sure about the process of them if they're only issuing these EAD cards, if they're still issuing some of these. Either way, both of these are valid. So if you get like a different EAD looking card than your friend, no worries. They're both valid, even if they look a little bit different from the other. Alrighty, so um, just keep that in mind. Managing stress. So I understand that it's a stressful time to, while you're applying for OPT, you're in your last semester, things are starting to get real. You need to start looking for a job. You need to, start becoming an adult. I totally understand that. But there are good ways to manage stress and there are bad ways to manage stress, okay? Some good ideas to manage your stress: exercising, spending time on your hobbies, preparing your resume and cover letters. That is the biggest gripe I hear from employers, that international students have terrible cover letters. And I'm thinking, why is that? Because the Career Center on campus is such a wonderful resource. And they will sit down with you and look at your cover letter, look at your resume, and give you some helpful tips along the way. And they'll also help to work on your interview skills. Okay. They do mock interviews and they have resources that are actually only focused for international students. So they're very, very knowledgeable about international students trying to look for a job. So definitely take advantage of their resources, okay? And you actually still have access to them when you are an alum. Some bad ideas to manage your stress, which I see every single day from our students. Checking your case status every day. That is going to lead you down a dark rabbit hole. And I will tell you right now, there will be no day-to-day updates about your case status. Reading non-credible websites, like finding a Reddit thread from 5 years ago that said they're getting rid of OPT and they're deporting international students. Please only come to the ISSO for 100% verified, truthful information regarding your immigration status. Do not listen to your friends. Do not listen to your friends at other schools. If you have any question about OPT or while your application is pending, just come chat with us. Email us, come to walk-in advising, phone advising. There are multiple ways for you to get in touch with us. But just keep that in mind, okay? So just think about all the good ways to manage your stress, and try to avoid these very, very bad ways to manage your stress. So while on OPT, some things that you need to consider. So once you're approved for OPT, you will receive a link to create what's called an SEVP portal account. So this right here. This is basically how the US government and the ISSO will be tracking where, when you're working, and personal things like your address, where you're living, your phone number, things like that. Okay. So you will get a link to create one of these after you're approved for OPT. Even if you don't have a job right away, you absolutely must create this account because the link does expire. Sometimes the link, doesn't get triggered properly, whatever the case may be. Just reach out to us, email me if you haven't received your portal link yet, and I'm happy to re-trigger it for you. And I will give you reminders about all this once you're actually approved on OPT, so you don't have to like memorize all of this right now. But you do have to report very diligently about what you're doing on OPT, who you're working for, where you're working. So all of that information has to be updated within 10 days of you beginning a job or ending a job or maybe moving, changing your phone number or office location. So just keep that in mind. Um, a new I-20 is not going to be generated every time you start or end employment on OPT. Okay. That's a common misconception. Students think that we are going to issue an I-20 every time that you start a job or end a job, and we are not going to do that because it's just not uh, mandatory by regulations for us to do that. I'm sure you'll have friends at other schools that are given a new I-20 every time they change a job, but that's more so a courtesy of other ISSO offices that maybe have less students than us. But you actually don't need an updated OPT I-20 as long as you have your EAD card that's valid. Okay. And your SCVP portal is your responsibility. It's not going to be monitored by us, the ISSO. It's 100% the student's responsibility to make sure everything is accurate within your portal. Okay. So unemployment time, I know this is also going to be a big question. So you do get 90 days of unemployment time within your 12 months of OPT. Okay. And these unemployment days kind of serve as a cushion for you if you're maybe in between jobs, or maybe it's taking you longer than you thought to find a job. So these 90 days are crucial, and they start ticking down from the date of your start date on your EAD. Okay. So OPT employment is 20 plus hours a week in your field of study. That is considered full time. It can be unpaid internships. It can be self-employment. Self-employment, like I said, is permissible, but we recommend that you speak with an immigration attorney if you want to be self-employed, because there's a few obstacles that you have to go through in order to do that. And then obviously paid employment is okay under OPT, and obviously we want you all to be paid for the work that you're doing. You can have more than one employer at the same time, so that's completely fine. And you can change employers on your 12 months of OPT. So maybe someone or something is not a good fit for you. You are not tied to that company. You are free to leave and to look for a new job. And that's what those unemployment days are there for. Okay. So it's always good to have an offer letter for your personal travel purposes, but Nowhere are you going to upload a job offer letter to your portal or anything like that. It's just good to have once you do decide to travel and re-enter the US. Okay. If you go over your 90 days of unemployment time, that is a violation of your F1 status. And you will have to exit the US immediately because you're no longer in good standing F1 status. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Traveling on OPT. Yes, you are free to travel when you're on OPT. We recommend that you have your EAD card in hand before you start traveling. And basically, it's the same travel documents that you've been using now as a student to travel. But in this case, just add your EAD card and maybe an employment offer letter or job verification letter. The one difference on OPT is that you will need a new travel signature every 6 months. So right now, as a student, your travel signatures are good for 12 months, but on OPT, they're only good for 6 months. And you can easily request a travel signature from us on our website. Um, and we are happy to do that and upload it to you in your ISSO Connect portal. Okay. Can you study while on OPT? So the answer generally is no. You are not allowed to study even part-time on OPT. You cannot start a new higher level program on OPT. If the government finds out that you are, essentially double dipping, and what I mean by that is you are starting a new program and you're also working full time, they are going to terminate your status so fast, which is obviously very, very bad. So, no starting a new program on OPT. If you want to start a new program, no problem at all. Just notify us and we will end your OPT and we'll either transfer your SEVIS ID to your new university, or we are happy to accommodate a change of level I-20 if you want to stay at UNC Charlotte. Okay, so you do have options. Um, Obviously, like community ed classes, like tennis lessons or like CPR certifications, that those don't count as study while on OPT since those are just like community education classes. Paying taxes. So this is probably my least favorite subject to talk about. But yes, more likely than not, you will have to pay taxes while you're working on OPT. Definitely check your first paycheck to make sure that your name is right, your social security number is correct. Because when it does come time to file taxes and that information is incorrect, you're going to have a major headache trying to fix all of that. Your country may have a tax treaty with the US, where you might not have to pay taxes for a certain amount of time, but it's really up to you to look that information up. You do not want to ask the ISSO staff anything tax related, because we are not tax professionals. We're not CPAs. I personally don't even do my own taxes. My parents still do. So you absolutely do not want to come to us for any tax related questions. Definitely make use of your human resources office with your employer, who is the go-to for these types of questions. Okay. So as your OPT is ending, and don't worry, this workshop is almost over. You do have options. So you do have 60 days after your EAD card ends to, decide what you want to do. You'll either, stay in the US and transfer to another university for a higher degree. or you are going to leave the US and then your F1 status is over. Okay. There is something called cap gap. I'm not going to get too much into it, but that is basically like an umbrella authorization between the end of your OPT and the start of your H-1B. But like I said, we're not going to talk about that because you are a ways away from that. And also, you may be eligible for a STEM extension once your 12 months of OPT is over if you are eligible for that STEM extension if you are in a STEM degree. Okay. And obviously, the ISSO will help you with that STEM extension as well. Alrighty, last slide. So, as I said before, there are multiple ways to get in touch with the ISSO. We do have 4 days of advising. We have 2 days of walk-in advising, 2 days of phone advising. So, if you are going to move away and be on OPT, that's what phone advising is there for if you want to speak with an advisor. As I said, we do have OPT reviews twice a week, and you can easily sign up for those after you submit your OPT I-20 request to the ISSO. Please only email one ISSO staff member about, the same question. So please don't email both Dylan and I about the same question because actually you may think you'll get a response faster, but you'll actually get a delayed response because we have to cross-check with each other. Hey, did you answer the student's question? Did you not? So just email only one ISSO staff member. That would be very, very respectable, and we're so grateful for that. Okay. So this is a workshop feedback. Dylan loves feedback that we get for any ISSO workshops, review sessions, programming events. So if you want to scan this and give us feedback about the OPT workshop, please do so. We love hearing feedback, bad, good, in between. Either way, we love hearing what students have to say because we are here to serve you. So we want to make sure that we're serving you in a positive manner. Okay. All righty. So we have reached the question portion of the workshop. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat, and I will answer them. If you have a case-specific question, so like a question that only pertains to you, just email me or come to advising so I can take the appropriate amount of time to look up your record, see what's going on, and give you the best answer. Okay. So let's see these questions. Let's say I apply for OPT on February 1st for a February 10th start date, but as expected, USCIS takes 90 days. What happens then? Does that time taken out of my 90 days or is it a grace period? So your 90 days of unemployment time are not going to be used by then, but you will lose out time on your 12 months of OPT. So say you did apply February 1st with a February 10th start date, but you're not approved until let's just say April 1st. Your start date will most likely be changed to April 1st, but your end date is still going to be like February 9th, 2025. So you're going to lose out on a lot of time for your 12 months. So we always say, please, apply earlier rather than later, especially taking into account how long USCIS is taking for OPT processing. Is there any premium processing for OPT? Yes, great question. There is premium processing for OPT, and we do go over that in the OPT review session. What premium processing is you pay, I think right now it's like $1,685 on top of the $470 fee, so about $2,000. And USCIS guarantees that they will give you a response within 30 days. Obviously, that's a huge chunk of change, especially for a student. So we really don't recommend applying for premium processing. But if you are curious, and as I said many times throughout this workshop, every student has different circumstances. So if you do want to apply for premium processing, definitely talk to us about it first to see is it really worth it for you to do that. You said something about being denied for an OPT. What was that case? Um, I'm not going to talk about that any further because it's about like 1% of students that apply at UNC Charlotte get denied. And I'll go more into detail about that in the review session of why that happens. But don't think you're going to get denied. Like 99% of students at UNC Charlotte get approved for OPT. Do we have to request for a travel endorsement or for the first time will it be pre-endorsed? When can I request for a travel signature? So say you apply for OPT next week and I issue your I-20 with a travel signature. That travel signature is good for 6 months. And then after those 6 months are over, you will need to apply for a travel signature if you are going abroad. Do we have OPT review session recordings? No, we do not record the OPT review session. Um, and that is because we have a step-by-step guide of filing the I-765 that you can look over after that review session is over. Can you start a new language in a local community college while on OPT? That's a good question. If it is like through a community center where you're not going to get a degree in that new language, then sure. But if you are, amounting towards like an associate's degree in Spanish, for example, that is absolutely no. Would I be able to travel after graduation and re-enter the US before my OPT is processed and my EAD card is issued? The answer to that is absolutely not. After graduation, so after December 13th, which is the end date on your I-20 for graduation purposes, you cannot re-enter the US without your EAD card. Okay. And that's because you are no longer a student. Yes, you're still on F1 status, but you're no longer an enrolled student. So you absolutely need to show that EAD card for your work authorization to re-enter the US. Can I apply for OPT before September 14th? The answer to that is no. The OPT application opens up tomorrow to request an I-20, but you should not apply before September 14th because you will get denied. Unless you are a PhD student, then that's different. Come talk to us. How does applying differ if by chance I have two different employers? So, you're not going to submit any employer information in your OPT application. This is not CPT, as I said in the beginning. You don't need a job offer to apply. There's no issue with having two different employers on OPT. But you'll just enter that information once you're approved for OPT in your SAVP portal. The dates for master's students for OPT applications is the same as what you stated in the beginning. Correct. If you are just a regular master's student, you absolutely have to file the timeline given in the beginning of the workshop. If you are a master's thesis student or a PhD dissertation student, that is different. Are internships considered employment while on OPT? Yes. As stated in the workshop, internships are considered employment while on OPT. Does postponing my graduation walk date affect my OPT period? No, it does not affect your OPT at all as long as you actually like graduate in that semester. But I will tell you now that the graduate school is actually like very rarely approving exceptions to delay your graduation walk. If we are good with the OPT review, then we are good with OPT approval for sure. Um, so if are you asking if you have like 100% chance of being approved for OPT if you attend an OPT review session? I'm not guaranteeing 100% approval rate if you attend an OPT review session. But you do have a high chance of being approved. Can we attempt any licensing exams while on OPT? Yes, any licensing exams is fine, as well as like any like certifications, that's fine on OPT. Can we do an internship from the graduation date till our full-time first day? Absolutely not. You have no employment authorization between graduation and when your start date is on your EAD card. That would be illegal employment, and we would have to terminate your status. Is there any difference between getting approval for OPT and receiving an I-20 after applying for OPT? Yes, there's a big difference. So, receiving an I-20 from us does not mean that you're approved for OPT. You'll see on your I-20 that on page 2, it'll show requested for OPT. It does not say you're approved for OPT. So you do have to go through the whole process of submitting your I-765 application, and then it's up to USCIS to approve you or not. After I get my OPT and EAD, I can go abroad and renew my visa stamp. Correct. Yes. You are able to renew your F1 visa on OPT because you're still continuing in F1 status, but you should bring your EAD card and a job verification offer letter with you. Uh, once we apply to OPT, in between it gets approved, can we change the address of where we will receive the EAD? Yes, you can change the address after you submit your OPT application to USCIS. It's very easy to do in your online application. Do we need to fill the I-765 application before the OPT review session? You can if you want to, or you can just follow along and fill it out as we go. So both options are completely fine. Can we work on campus after graduation? Absolutely not. You are not eligible for on-campus employment after December 13th. Is it only a job offer letter we need to re-enter the US after international travel? No, there are other documents that you need, including your EAD card, a valid passport, valid visa, and a travel signature that's been within 6 months. Okay, so when I receive an I-20, even if the OPT is not approved, it will still be valid to like extend a driver's license. I'm not really sure what you're asking here. Come to advising if you need more clarification. Can I postpone my graduation ceremony for May? That has nothing to do with the ISSO. But as I said, the graduate school is not really issuing any exceptions to postpone your graduation walk. Are we supposed to work 40 hours on campus if we have only one subject in this last semester? I'm not answering that question. That is a question that only applies to you, so please come to advising. Can I do postdoc on campus after OPT approval? Yep, there's no problem with doing that at all. As a proof of employment, is it job offer letter we need to show the officer to re-enter the US? Yes. As I said, you do need proof of employment to enter the US when you're on OPT. Can I work as a research assistant if my department offers after I graduate? That is a complex question, and the answer generally is no, you cannot do that. Can we do any unpaid internships slash assistantships on campus after course completion and before receiving the EAD card? As I said, absolutely not. You have no work authorization after December 13th up until your start date. That is grounds for a termination. If I get a 6-month internship during my OPT period, but my OPT ends before the internship is over, will the internship still count? Also, what visa would I need to switch to in order to continue my internship legally after OPT ends? This is a personal question. Please come to advising. Any more questions? Can I still be on the school stipend until OPT approval as a PhD student? That is a case-specific question. Please come to advising to talk to us about that. If I'm going abroad and re-entering the US while on an F1 visa before graduation, do I need any other travel documents apart from the travel signature with I-20? You do need your passport and F1 visa. You mentioned taxes change on OPT after 5 years in the USA. Yes, I did mention that. And I also mentioned that do not ask us any questions about the specifics of that because we are not tax professionals. So you'll have to reach out to your company. What are the earliest dates to apply for the OPT start date? So, as said in the beginning of the workshop, the earliest date you can choose as your OPT start date is December 14th. Does self-employment apply only for the 12-month period, or can I do it for the extended STEM OPT as well? Um, it is very, very difficult to do self-employment on STEM OPT. So I'm going to go with no, you can't do it on STEM OPT. And as I said, if you are thinking about self-employment, definitely consult an immigration attorney because there are uh, hurdles that you have to go through in order to like establish yourself as your own employer as an F1 student. Can we keep the OPT start date as February 10th? 2025, or else we have to keep it as February 8th, 2025. Not really sure what you're asking. It's really up to you to choose any date within those 60 days. How much time gap will there be from applying OPT to approval? As I said, USCIS is taking about 3 to 4 months to approve students for their OPT. So that's why we recommend applying early on rather than later on in the semester. And no, your 90 days start ticking after you've been approved for OPT and your start date has arrived. What if your OPT start date is something as early as December 15th and the application is still pending? Does this happen or is it guaranteed that the decision is given before the start date? No, that's a great question. Oh, nothing is guaranteed by USCIS. Even if you have an early start date, December 15th, they really don't care to approve your application by then. So you could apply like next week and have a December 15th start date. That doesn't mean that you're going to be approved by then. You have a higher chance, but no, nothing guarantees a decision before a start date. Can I graduate in May 2025? That is a loaded question and that's a personal question. So definitely come to advising so we can answer that for you. Should I apply for OPT before applying for adjustment of status? Again, this is a very case-specific question, and I'm not answering that right now. Please come to walk-in advising. Any more questions? We also have a frequently asked questions page actually on the ISSO's website. So if you have like a general question, definitely take a look there. I'm sure your question will be answered. The start date on your OPT I-20 and start date to USCIS should be the same or it can be different. No, that is going to be the same. Can I apply for OPT in December 2024? Sure. Yes, you can, but just know that you are going to lose out on time most likely. All right, everyone. So we are going to end this workshop. I've been answering questions for about 25 minutes. Um, if you have a case specific question, like I said, just come to advising. We're happy to talk to you about it. But other than that, as I said, the application to request an OPT I-20 will be open tomorrow. And the very first day that you can apply is this Saturday. So I hope you all got something out of this workshop and you are feeling a bit more comfortable with the process after attending. As I said, this will be recorded and it will be posted on the ISSO's OPT webpage probably later on today. Alrighty, so have a great rest of your day. I'm sure I will talk to you all very, very soon. Feel free to email me about any question or concern. You all have my email address now from the Zoom link. And I'm happy to talk to you there or during advising. Okay. So have a great rest of the day, everyone. And like I said, I'm sure I'll talk to you all very, very soon. Okay? So take care, everybody, and talk soon.